Hi everyone, I'm Jen and I'm from the Ginger Thread Girl. I hope you're all really well and I hope you've had a really good sewing week. So today I will apologise in advance because this is possibly going to be an emotional vlog. I will try to rein in the tears, but so today I want to talk to you about my sewing story as I'm an ambassador for the hashtag Smiley Challenge. If you've not come across this already, Smiley spelled S-M-Y-L-Y, and it stands for Sewing Makes You Love Yourself. Basically it's a challenge on Instagram where it's organised by three super lovely ladies, Athina Kakou, Hattie Krohn and Lisa Kisch, and basically it's a sewing challenge where it's really encouraging people to talk about their sewing stories and how it has benefited their mental health and or body image positivity, which I think are all fantastic things that come out of sewing for yourself. So basically people are encouraged to make something specific for the challenge and then talk about how that garment makes them feel, or just to talk about how sewing has helped their mental health or their sewing stories basically. So today I wanted to talk to you about basically my sewing story and how I got into it. And well, basically I think there are two stories for me. There's how I got into sewing and basically me coming back into sewing after having a baby. It's the second one that's the biggie really. So I got into sewing after I got married. So I got married in 2013 and I loved wedding planning. I loved making decorations, making invitations. I made so much stuff for our wedding. You know, all the Pinterest boards, all of that really creative side of it, I absolutely loved. So once we were married, obviously I had my wonderful, lovely husband, but I did also find that there was something missing basically from my life. I needed something creative to do. So I took myself off to my local college and I did an evening class in beginners dressmaking. And basically once we were shown the sort of basics of dressmaking, how to read a pattern, different fabric types, those sorts of things, I was just like off like a shot. I was like, now I can make dresses and this and that. And I remember turning up to one of our, I think like maybe our third or fourth class where people were still like trying to get to grips with learning patterns, and I turned up with a finished dress. And I remember saying to my husband, I think I've found my thing, like my thing that I'm all right at, I'm good at, I think, and I think I love it. And it was just such a lovely feeling to get into something and just become completely obsessed with it. And like every minute I had spare, I was in the kitchen, like sewing at the kitchen table, and you know, whereas before I suppose I'd have just sat and watched TV or something, but I was just obsessed with sewing. So I guess I had what was like what people call post-wedding blues. I don't know, it felt a bit deeper than that. It did really feel like I needed something creative to sort of occupy myself with. And I was so happy after I went to that college course. I was so happy. I remember at the beginning of that year, I'd seen some kind of like Pinterest quote had come up about New Year's resolutions, and it was like this quote with lots of different like ideas of New Year's resolutions, and it was things like go out in the fresh air more, walk away from your phone more, get creative, do all these things. And I was like, yes, I need to do all these things. So I really felt like the creative part, going and doing the sewing course, was that ticked off my list, and I was like, this year I've achieved my New Year's resolutions and I'm amazing, and I felt so pumped from it. It was just brilliant. And basically from there I started my blog, which was like another sort of creative aspect. I loved taking the photos and planning the photos, writing about everything, and then the online sewing community, like talking and saying, nice things about things that I'd made. It was like, it's just such a lovely feeling that there were things that I had made, not bought, I'd made. Like, this is amazing. So yeah, that was the really nice thing to come from me starting sewing. The second part of the story, so I had a baby nearly a year ago. So while I was pregnant, I did quite a bit of sewing. In hindsight, I wish I did more. I remember thinking, but I'm tired, but I feel a bit knackered from work and I'm so big and and I just wish I'd have just got into the sewing room and just gone back to it, because once you're there and you're sewing, you're so distracted from everything else, you're just so absorbed in it. So after I had the baby, I didn't have any time to sew for many months. So I'll talk to you more about my make, which I'm wearing, which is all linked to this same story. Now, I just want to give a little disclaimer and a little warning. I am going to talk about my birth story now, so if anyone's a bit grossed out by things like birth stories, or you're a mum to be very soon and you just don't want to hear anything, that's fine. Please just don't worry about it. So I gave birth on the 27th of February last year, 2017. I had a really normal labour in the scheme of things. I went for a sweep when I was a week overdue, and I was 2 centimetres dilated, and I hadn't even realised I'd been having contractions or anything. So that was brilliant. Even when I had the sweep, the midwife said she had her finger on the baby's head, which was insane and kind of grossed me out. And sorry if that grosses anyone else out. So yeah, that was a Saturday. 6 o'clock in the morning on the Sunday, I started feeling twinges. And I remember thinking, I think that's maybe, I don't know, just a bit of tummy grumble maybe. I don't think it's a contraction because it doesn't feel painful really. So then maybe an hour later I was like, I think these might be contractions. So anyway, basically that's how my Sunday went, was just having contractions. Just sat on the sofa really. I knew not to go into hospital until my contractions were closer together and lasting longer and stronger. So it got until maybe like 7 in the evening, and I thought, right, these are getting what I'd call painful now. And my husband we had a TENS machine, which is like a little electric device where you can put the pads on your back, and it puts, I think it's like an electrical charge, it just helps with pain relief. So I put that on, and we rang up the hospital, and I think I was in hospital about 8:30, 9ish at night, and I still remember getting there thinking, they're going to turn me away, I'm not going to be far along enough. But no, actually, when they checked me, I was 4 or 5 centimetres dilated. So I sat on my ball for a bit, and there was a moment, I just think it all just went click, right, this is labour now, and it just got so painful. And I don't actually remember too much detail of it. It just, I guess you go into your zone. So, I mean, nothing really that crazy happened during the labour other than I contracted. I got in the birthing pool, and yeah, other than this sort of hazy being in my little zone thing going on, I didn't scream much. I didn't really make that much noise. I remember saying, I'm out now, I want to go, take me home, I can't do this, which apparently is the moment that midwives say it's going to happen now. And I gave birth at 1 in the morning. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit emotional thinking about it. I gave birth at 1 in the morning on the 27th of February. I'm really sorry. When he was born, he was, the midwife said straight away, "Oh, he's big." And I'm not a particularly large person, so to me he just looked like a baby. He was £9.9, and I hadn't had any drugs. I mean, I'd had gas and air, I'd been in a birthing pool, but I gave birth naturally. And then I had him, and he was given to my husband to hold, and I had to go, and I decided to deliver the placenta naturally, which I did, which in hindsight is pretty amazing, considering that after that I discovered I had a 3rd-degree tear, which is kind of understandable given that he was a really big baby. So I was inspected by the midwife, and I have to say the inspection of my tear was more painful than my labour by a long shot. And then I was inspected by another midwife. I had to have gas and air while they were inspecting me, and then they said they thought I had a 4th-degree tear, and a doctor had to come and inspect me. And then that doctor said, "You need to go to theatre to be repaired, and we're going to have to give you an epidural." And I just remember thinking my whole world had fallen apart, because I had just given birth naturally to a £9.9 baby, and now you're telling me I have to go for an epidural. I was distraught at the time. Now I can sort of see the not funny side, but I can sort of laugh about it at least. I ended up having to wait for, I think, 7 hours to go into theatre. It was already a very traumatising experience. I had to have a catheter put in, which was insanely painful, given that I was all torn and everything. And I just remember being in complete shock. Like any new first mum especially, when you're handed that baby, you're just in total shock. A lot of people say you instantly fall in love with this baby. I honestly can't say that I felt love. I felt shocked, shell-shocked completely. I did not love him, but the overriding feeling was complete shock. Anyway, waiting to go in was awful, and then it was fine going in. Actually, in theatre it was okay. There were loads of people in there, which was a bit scary, and being in that like theatre environment and being awake and being operated on was kind of terrifying. But my midwife was the best. She held my hand through the whole thing, and talked about cats to me while I had my eyes closed, talked about donuts or something crazy. Anyway, I came out, and I went into recovery, and I remember thinking, I was trying to breastfeed and the baby was just crying, and I remember thinking his hands were a bit shaky, but I mean, I just thought he was kind of upset or something. And then some hours later I went on to the postnatal ward, and I am going to cry now because this bit's awful. A midwife came to check on him because she heard a lot of crying. I was trying to breastfeed him again, and she said his hands are quite shaky, he's a bit jittery. She said, "I'll just check his blood sugars." And at the time I didn't think anything awful was going to happen, and nothing awful did really happen. His blood sugars were in the floor, they were so low. And then she said she was just going to quickly go and get a doctor to come and check him, and it didn't sound at all urgent or anything. And then like a plainclothes doctor came round and checked his blood sugars, which wasn't very nice because they have to prick his heel to get some blood. And she said, "Right, it's quite low, we're just going to take him to go and check him over." And I couldn't move. I'd just been operated on, I had a catheter in, I was lying in the bed. I don't even think I could properly stand up, you know, with my legs being from the epidural. And And then my husband went with the baby, and he he came back, and he just broke down in front of me, because he just had to stand and watch and actually help them jab him and hook him up to lines. I now know that they were really worried he had sepsis, so they needed to get antibiotics in him immediately, so they had to put lines in. And my husband had to help pass things to the doctor because it was such an emergency. And he just came back in, and he just crumbled in front of me. So we spent a week on NICU. I wasn't even allowed to hold him for a few days. I just had to look at him in an incubator. He had lines in his foot, hand and belly button, and it was just the most traumatic thing I can explain. He was 15 hours old, and I couldn't hold him, and he was just taken from me. So I had to spend a week madly pumping milk for him to be fed down the tube for him. I couldn't breastfeed, and I think it really affected things at the start. Anyway, he was fine. He was absolutely fine. We got out of there after a week, and I was so happy to get home. I was so excited to get him in that car seat and get home. And the reality of all of this is that that was all the real easy bit. When he was 2 weeks old, 10 days old actually, I think, he just started screaming and screaming and screaming, and we couldn't stop the screaming. I was trying to breastfeed him, and he was just screaming off of my boobs. The only way we could get him to have milk, any amount of milk, was on a bottle, and I felt so rejected. We went to so many doctors because he was just screaming. If he was awake, he was screaming. We've had so much screaming and crying, and a lot of doctors said it's just colic. It might be reflux. We tried reflux medications. We checked for allergies. We even took him to A&E one night because he wouldn't stop screaming. And we've seen paediatricians, private paediatricians, and all of them said he's absolutely fine. He's actually the picture of health. He's just this way, and you're just going to have to deal with it, basically. And so he's screamed basically his whole life so far. He still cries a lot of the time, most of the time probably. And as a new mum, you don't really know what to expect from a baby, but that isn't the picture that you envisage when you're pregnant, of just juggling this screaming baby. Not all babies are like him, but I know some babies can be like him. He's normal, but he's difficult, and I think he's termed as a high needs or difficult baby. And if there are any mums out there watching this of a high needs or difficult baby, I feel for you, because it has by far been the most difficult thing ever. And it's left me suffering with quite a lot of anxiety. So I've been struggling with that. Basically been dealing with a screaming mess of a baby, and it's only been through things like coping mechanisms, like just getting out of the house, going for a walk, taking breaks, getting people to help with him. So my mum and my husband's been amazing, and sewing. So getting back into sewing hasn't been easy. I know if anyone's had a baby, got a baby, you'll probably be thinking, well, you won't be able to sew ever because you just don't have time, and you don't really. It's only really been by my husband helping and saying, right, you go and sew. And I've really been one for saying, oh, but I feel bad leaving you, and oh, but. And he's just said, Jen, go and sew. Yeah, I haven't sewn much, and probably the only way I've been able to sew is just kind of telling myself that, 20 minutes here or there is still sewing. You can't sit and make a whole dress or a whole outfit in a day, but you can do little bits here and there. So that's what I've done really. And nap times, once we had more routine going and he was taking longer naps, I can hear him crying now, sorry by the way. So once he was having better naps, I've been able to escape. Once I've done all the essentials like drinking, eating, going for a wee, once I've got all those essentials out of the way, I've been able to escape into the sewing room, which has been great. So I've been able to sew a few things here or there, not loads, but it's been really good for me. As an anxiety sufferer, I definitely think distraction techniques are amazing. So to be able to absorb myself into a project in the sewing room has been like the ultimate distraction from things. So yeah, when I've been feeling really bad, actually when I've been feeling really bad, I haven't wanted to sew, and then there's a problem. So it's been a case of just, if I just got myself into the room, you just start to pick things up, and yeah, it's just been like the ultimate distraction. So from a mental health point of view, I just think sewing, or actually any hobby, if you're a creative person and you need to create and use your hands, it's the best feeling. So yeah, it's been my saving grace, and it's pulled me out of so many dark holes, it's unreal. So yeah, that's basically my emotional sewing story. Yeah, it's not a particularly easy one to tell, and I always cry whenever I talk about my labour or what happened afterwards. I get really emotional. But we're pulling through. He's going to be a year old in a couple of weeks, and it feels like we've got through a lot, and we've definitely got through the worst. Those first 6 weeks especially were insanely hard. I've cried probably most days since he's been born, because it's just so hard. And yeah, I don't mean to scare anyone who's thinking of having a baby or pregnant or anything like that, but it has been really hard. And I've always been one to be very honest about how hard I've found things. I know not everyone finds things as hard as me, but I've definitely found it a difficult change, going from just me to me and baby. So yeah, I feel pretty wrung out now telling that whole story. I'm sorry if that's not the sort of upbeat, normal sewing stuff I usually like to talk about, but behind all of that, that's what's been going on. Yeah, and I have always been very honest that he's been a difficult baby, and it's amazing the people that reach out that have had similar stories that can sort of say, yeah, totally been there, done that, geez, you are really going through it. I can remember those first 6-12 weeks, it's insane. But back to the smiley challenge and my make. So people have been in this challenge, people have been making something new to show, and I had been messaging Athina about my make, because my make I wanted to show, this that I'm wearing, is one that I've previously made, and it just told the story and represented everything that Smiley represents, that I couldn't not show this dress. So I'll show you it now, and then I'll sort of talk you through how I made it and everything and the story behind it. So this is, ta-da! This is a Tilly and the Buttons Rosa shirt dress, and I've made it out of, it looks like double denim, but it is actually 3 shades. It's just the light and the medium are really similar. So this is light and this is medium, and this is obviously dark. So basically, when I was pregnant, I had seen some pictures of high street dresses that were like triple denim, mixed denim, and I'm a big fan of a shirt dress. So I decided I wanted to make my own version. So I don't think the Rosa shirt dress had been out, the pattern hadn't been out for that long, so I knew I wanted to make one. And yeah, I just wanted to make my own triple denim one, but I was pregnant obviously at the time. So basically, it was actually while I was in labour at home, I started planning the dress out for making once I'd had the baby, obviously. And yeah, I'd worked out how much of each shade of denim I needed to make the dress, and I ordered the fabric from Fabric Godmother. And the fabric actually arrived while I was in hospital, so when I got home it was all there waiting. And I wanted to make this dress for, I went to the sewing weekend, and this is the dress that I wore on the first day. And it was my first post-baby make. So I have to say, that feeling of being able to make something in loads of little snippets of 15 minutes here or there, and actually completing it and being really proud of the finish. It was just the most amazing feeling. I'm just so pleased with how it worked out, and the top stitching, and when I look at this dress I just remember all those feelings of complete pride in getting back into sewing. So yeah, this just totally represented the Smiley challenge in a complete nutshell. I just couldn't not show it. So I know people probably seen pictures of it on my Instagram or whatever, on my blog, but yeah, I just had to show it because it was just Smiley all over. So sorry if this video wasn't the normal sort of positive, light and airy video that my sewing videos normally are, but it's that's the reality. And even now I'm very good at putting a brave face on things, and sort of functioning quite well through anxiety. Yeah, it's been a real struggle, and only now do I feel like I've not come through it, we're still in it, but I feel like things are getting better, and they're definitely nowhere near as bad as they were. So, you know, I have sewing to thank for holding on to my sanity, really. I know people joke about that, but really I think that's really true for me. So yeah, go check out the Smiley challenge on Instagram and other videos on YouTube as well. There's some really touching, emotional videos of how people got into sewing and how it's sort of saved them and helped them. So yeah, go sewing! Thanks to the organisers for organising this challenge. I hope everyone's liked the video, and I'll see you again really soon. Take care, bye!